Okay, so we all know this ISO 20022 system is coming into play for Swift, and that means, and it's in relation to, the messaging layer in a payment. So just to recap, when you send a payment, when you send money from a bank to a bank, or from a person to a bank, or from person to person, a message with the information of that transaction goes before the actual money goes. And the way that that message is actually structured is all coded in. Every single thing you can possibly do to interact with a bank, whether that's withdrawing money, sending money, holding money, getting interest on money, or anything that you can do, has its own very specific message code. This code is then used by the companies who process payments in Swift's portal. It's called My Swift. And within there, you can actually add these messaging codes into the coding of your own institution. And what that allows you to do is then send financial messages that are received on the other end, enabling you to create this pathway to be able to send funds from person to person, bank to bank, whatever. And so now we're changing into this ISO 20022 system. It comes with a whole load of new message codes. And actually, as I've looked at it now, and I've been away for a few days because I've just been, any time that I've been getting, I've just been dedicating to learning about this. There are about 700 new messaging codes that apply within ISO 20022. And all of these codes relate to certain amounts of information that go in those messages. The previous system was very basic, very rudimentary. It was data poor, so there wasn't much data in the messages that go. But with the ISO 20022 update, it's going to be data rich, meaning they can add so much more capabilities within these messages and send so much more information within these messages. For example, like adding blockchain to this whole system. That would probably be a lot more information, right? And so doing my little digging on Swift, I say little, I was down a rabbit hole big time. Big time. So much in a rabbit hole that I couldn't actually bring myself to make a video because I needed to understand what was going on. And I have to confess, before I share the actual meat of this video, I have to confess, this is a hypothesis that I'm working on, and I want to explain my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that if we can find these messaging codes within open source blockchain environments, so what I mean by that is the XRP ledger is open source, meaning any developers can see the code that makes up the XRP ledger. And so my hypothesis is, if I can find these ISO messaging codes on the XRP ledger, that would show me a direct correlation between blockchain and a traditional finance message system. If I can find the point on the XRP ledger where it joins with ISO, the thing is solved, right? And this leads us to go even further than this. On the Swift website, I've managed to get access to not just the codes, but also the codes that are represented within each individual bank in the world, or at least all the individual banks that use Swift. I exaggerated there a bit, but it's a lot of banks, right? And so the whole idea is that if I can see these messaging codes on a blockchain environment linking the ISO messaging system, and I can see individual banks that have the capability to be able to use these certain message codes that directly relate to ISO 20022, all of a sudden, that means, based on my hypothesis, I can see exactly which banks are ready to go with ISO 20022 and which ones aren't. That's a big deal. I don't know how else to put it. That's a big deal. That means, you know, when we see the European Central Bank say most of the people were ready, but we're going to delay it until March, and then right at the end, or the Swift document that says the same thing, right at the end it says, but those who want to opt in can opt in. Well, that's a big deal. If we know who's ready to go, and there's an opt-in service in November, what's stopping those people in November actually getting started? That's basically, and I'm imagining I'm probably the first on the internet to kind of put all this together, and I can't tell if it's 100% correct, right? I can't tell if you absolutely need these messaging codes to use ISO 20022. You might be able to do it without it, using their cloud-based system. So I can't completely guarantee, but what I've ended up with is a list of banks that I believe could be ready to use ISO as and when that switch is flipped, which is big news. Anyway, so let's get into some of it here. I won't share the list on here. I have also shared that on my members only areas. So that's on Patreon and that's on YouTube. You can click join next to subscribe on YouTube, and you can click the link in the description to go to Patreon. It's crazy stuff, man. So let's get into it. The first category of messages that we need to see in a bank that is ready to go with ISO 20022 is pane 1, pane 2, and REMT 1. Now we're going to talk about pane 1 here. Pane stands for payment initiation. The way they structure these things, you can see on the screen right here, how they structure these messages and how they formulate the codes. But essentially what pane does is it is the first message in a transaction that comes from outside of a bank into a bank. Okay, so this might come from a person to a bank that would be using a pane messaging system. Now this one, you would imagine, would, if relating it to blockchain, would only be useful if you were perhaps, say, transferring your crypto into a bank. You'd probably be using a pane message. So this is why we need to look for the pane 001, pane 002 in the coding, because if we can see those messages in a blockchain environment on a ledger like the XRP ledger, we can see exactly that it's enabling us to send cryptocurrency into the bank. If we're sending cryptocurrency from ourselves to another person, it will still send a pane message because it has to go through the bank. The bank then has to convert it into other types of messages and then send it through to the recipient, right? And this would open up the whole world of banking using your crypto, right? And I know we've talked about custody and staking and everything, but I'm also talking about the transfer of different cryptos from different blockchains or whatever to another person via a bank. What if a bank offered the service for you to be able to transfer funds? Like, let's say you open your banking app and it says, do you want to send your CBDC, or do you want to send your fiat, or do you want to send this cryptocurrency? And you could do that and it could come straight from your wallet through the bank to the recipient, right? Which is quite interesting. Not to say that that's something I would be doing, but it's interesting nonetheless, right? Then there's the second part of a transaction called PAX, and PAX relates directly to settlement. This is the settlement part of a payment. There are lots of types of PAX settlement codes, so I'm not going to go into all of them, but just understand that it means settlement and can quite simply be defined as a message of a transaction that goes from a bank to a bank. Now, when we're talking about XRP and cross-border payments and bank-to-bank payments, this is what we're interested in, right? We're interested in PAX messaging codes. So this is what I'm looking for in the likes of Chainlink, who is going to be linking blockchains to the financial system via Swift, right? We need to see these PAX codes in the code of Chainlink. And if we do see that, we can see directly where in this process, where in the payment system, Chainlink would attach. And obviously then Chainlink attaches to XRP Ledger and all kinds of other blockchains. And bear in mind, I haven't found all of this out yet. This is all a hypothesis, right? It's a theory that I'm working on. Now, another one that's really interesting to me is a code called EBAM. And this is in relation to bank account management, okay? And this, you have to have this to be ISO 20022 compliant, okay? Or at least to have your messages and your bank set up to be able to offer bank account management. And what I found really interesting in this list, I'm just going to read off to you now. I'm not going to show you the list because I want to make sure I'm right when I say these things, right? Before I show things. We have a few banks here. Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citibank, and one really interesting one, BNY Mellon. So what does this mean? Well, I don't know. But what I do think it could mean is that we know BNY Mellon are going to be offering cryptocurrency custody services, kind of like cash account management, right? Theoretically, you could say that these accounts, to be ISO 20022 compliant, could also incorporate the idea of blockchain custody or cryptocurrency custody via blockchain. I just thought it was interesting that BNY Mellon appeared here, and on some occasions it didn't appear with the other ISO messaging standards, but it appeared here. So if we look at the grand scheme of things, BNY Mellon, they're ready with bank account management ISO 222, but not some of the pane or PAX messaging standards. But they've already come out and said they're going to do custody. I mean, what I'm deducing from that is that BNY Mellon, they're ready for custody, but they're maybe not ready to do all the payments yet. And they may be one of the ones that aren't ready. Or maybe they are ready, and this is just the most recent report that was updated, and who knows when this report was made. But I will say, this data is pulled from something called a readiness portal. So this is where everybody comes in, all the banks come in and update the entity, in this case Swift, update them on what they're ready to go with and what they're not. And those banks that I just mentioned, they're ready for account management on the ISO 20022 messaging standard. I just thought that was interesting. You can think what you want. And so when you pair all of that information together, like I have, and I've filtered all of these different areas together, every single element of the ISO 20022 messaging update that's coming in November or March, what I've done is I've filtered every single bank that is ready across the board. And not just that, not just the bank, but also the country specific bank. So I'll give you a few here. We've got Australia and New Zealand Bank. They are ready across the board with advanced certification, okay? They're ready. And they are not just ready in Australia and New Zealand, they're also ready in their Indonesia branch, okay? So this is what this spreadsheet is showing me, and we're not just seeing big countries here. We're not just seeing the likes of France, Italy, Japan, South Korea. It's not just those. It's not like those ones are just the ones that are ready. We've got Côte d'Ivoire, that's Ivory Coast in English. Countries like Martinique and Reunion, which is a small French-speaking island just off the coast of Madagascar. How have we got these tiny entities around the world on a global scale ready to go with advanced certification as well? Ready to go across the board with ISO? How has that happened? Well, I'll tell you how it's happened. Did I also mention New Caledonia? This is crazy. This has happened because they know this is coming. They've been in training. They've been adapting their whole systems for the last 2 years to integrate this new messaging system to replace the old messaging system, which is MT. Everyone has known since 2 years ago that November was the go date. Like, everyone knew that November was the crunch time. That's when everything's going live. Isn't it interesting that simply a month before they go live, everything's been on track for 2 years. A month before they go live, the European Central Bank asked for a delay. They've had the time, right? Who are they delaying for? This is the question we have to ask. Who are they delaying for? Because we know, looking at this, I'll tell you right now, there are 679 of these banks that are actually ready to go with payment initiation, right? They're all ready to go with that. And what we can take that to mean is that many banks are ready to make payments with this new system. Make payments. That's all we need. We need to make payments. That's literally the only thing we're waiting for. And when I look at how many banks are actually ready across the board with ISO related codes, I'm scrolling down the list here, which you'll see on the members areas. Shall I read off a few? Okay, I'll read off a few. We've got, like I said earlier, Australia and New Zealand Bank, big. Bank of China, quite big. BNP Paribas, very, very big, okay? Basically every country. Bank of America, yes, I said it. Bank of Tokyo, this is Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi. So many countries around the world. I'm looking at the whole list. JP Morgan Chase, come on. These are ready with advanced certification, and not just in one country, not just in Europe, across the world, including the USA. They're ready in the USA. Yes, I dropped that bombshell. And I'm just going to leave it there. I've got to find out more. I've got to see if these codes actually appear on the different open source blockchains that are available to us. If you have the smarts or that stuff, it's all there for you. But I do urge you to join this community. Click join next to subscribe to get access to all that information. There's lots happening. I just need to make sure that this means what I think it means. And if it does mean what I think it means, it's big news. And it's the first of its kind in this space, right? And this is what rabbit holing gets you. This is what happens when you go down the rabbit hole. So I say all of that to say the banks are ready. Don't get it twisted. It seems like they've even announced, all of them, that they have these individual codes ready. And just like, I'm actually going to say something. The European Central Bank are not lying about everything, because they said most people are ready to go with ISO, and they're actually right. They're right. Obviously, they didn't disclose who. I think I might have found out, but they're not lying about that. Most people are ready to go. And if that opt-in basis thing is true, then yes, we're likely to see something happen in November. If it's not true, and it means the opt-in actually doesn't mean anything, we do have to wait, in fact, till March, then so be it. But look, this is what digging gets you. This is how far I've got. If you are at all interested in scooping up in this dip, all the last remaining XRPs that you possibly can. Of course, none of this is financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do. This is just my own research and coming to my own conclusions, and it's for entertainment purposes only. But if you do want to pick up some XRP, you can check out BingX. The link is below. You can actually buy on BingX immediately and send it to your cold storage wallet, which is super helpful. And this is the time to be accumulating, in my opinion. It's very exciting. But thank you for being here. Join, become a member, see this list, see what you think, give me comments, give me feedback. Only follow my legit social medias, and those are all in the description below. Stay emotionless, most importantly. I'll see you in the next